The situation on the ground. The Gen Z came out to give a memorandum talking about what exactly their demands are, their issues. The president has equally spoken to this particular protest over the church service and said he is willing to, of course, give them a listening ear. But there are questions now in the air asking if a dialogue is the way to go. Some even interrogating further to say, what about? What really is there to dialogue about? Different voices now weighing in, including the clergy. The diaspora have also taken to the streets, chanting similar, things that we're hearing in the country. But remember, tomorrow remains a big day, as we will see the finance bill get into the committee of the whole house. Clause by clause discussions might go all the way to the evening. We're yet to follow how tomorrow turns out. But I'm here with very key voices. In fact, having watched some of the clips, I was able to spot a number of them. So we need to also hear from them this evening. What exactly are their demands? What do they expect tomorrow? The Interior CS has spoken this evening on how they should behave themselves. Talking about 6:30 should be, pretty much it for tomorrow. Will they follow this? I want to appreciate Yasin Munyanya, who was a Nairobi gubernatorial candidate 2020. We're also seeing Khalif Cairo, who is a young entrepreneur, very vocal on TikTok and social media. Nasra Nanda, who is the County Assembly sitting MCA, and she's also an advocate of the High Court. Bob Njangi has always talked about his story, saying he is a descendant of the Mau Mau fighters and now the chairman of the Free Kenya movement. I am very honored to have you today on this set. Before I hear your remarks, quickly, let's look back on former President Uhuru Kenyatta's remarks on the power and energy of the young people. Let's take a look.
The problem we have is our young people. Again, let us not cheat ourselves. It is our young people. We have a youth bulge that, if not properly handled, can be a time bomb that can blow this country to pieces. And the handling of that has to be done extremely carefully. Extremely carefully. That is not a problem of this community or that. It affects us all. But how we manage it, we must manage it very carefully. We cannot manage it through inciting them. All right? We must manage it by including them in our decision-making processes.
Well, I will speak less, I will listen more and ask the questions you are asking right now on social media, on YouTube, on Facebook. We are KTN News across board. You can find me at Doris Anki. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for creating time. Yasin, let me start with you. You came out 2020, I don't know how old you were then, try to vie for a gubernatorial seat. I don't know how that came out for you. There's so much, in the issues put across, representation, factors, your voices being heard. President Uhuru Kenyatta saying, if you're not properly handled, it might not be so well with the country. This far, do you think you are being properly handled? And what is the matter?
First of all, thank you so much for having us on set. And this is a conversation that should actually have been held way, way long time ago. But it's never too late, because our country began somewhere. And since independence, we have countries that are over 400 years old. Kenya is not even 100 years old, yeah? So as of now, what I believe is, number one, the young people are not being handled in the best way possible, because while, number one, we are being told that we have the right to express our voices, there is also rising concern that actually we should not be victimized, yeah, for actually expressing the dissent that we have towards the government. And it's not that there is no pride in actually taking on the head of state and saying that, look, sir, we elected you, we don't like how you're doing things. What we just want is to have a conversation, and it's not only about the young people, it's about the whole country at large. It's just that this time round, we're the face. Yeah.
All right, about having a conversation, let me talk to the chairman, Free Kenya Movement. How old is the movement? This long? I mean, is Kenya free? How is the free movement working, do you think, the young people? Because there are concerns that the opposition, such movements as yours, should desist from riding on the Gen Z agenda. Are you riding on the Gen Z agenda? Why didn't you come out before the Gen Z? And because I've seen you as well in the front page of the Sunday Nation, right here holding the flag, there's that concern. Are you taking advantage of the Gen Zs to ride on with your own Free Kenya Movement objectives?
Thank you very much for having us on this show. And first and foremost, I want to appreciate the role which the Gen Zs have come to play in the socio-political fiber of this country. For many years since independence, like you correctly said, my grandfather was one amongst many who fought for the liberation of this country in 1963. But that was their generation and that was their time, what they had to do. We had the second liberation, which was led by the likes of the Matibas, the Onyenko, Cheng Onenko, Raila Odinga was among them, and many others who liberated, and we had the second, the multi-party era in 1992. At that point, we were still young people ourselves. We could not really comprehend what was happening in the country. But at this point, in 2018, I remember that is when we founded the Free Kenya Movement. It was founded at the backbone of the 2018 Finance Bill, where for the first time we had the government introducing VAT on petroleum products and airtime products. I think you can recall. And that was a time we led a demonstration in Nairobi, outside Parliament, calling for the MPs to reject the Finance Bill. So we began way back in 2018. We even have a popular initiative, a referendum, that is directly touching on the high cost of living, which I hope the Gen Zs can now take a look at it, because we have done a lot of work getting to this stage. Let me tell you something. What is happening right now is really an emancipation of the gains that have come through the new constitution. In the past, some people would not dare come out on the streets like is happening today under the one-party state. So some people had to sacrifice, and we had a new constitution which now gives the young generation more space for them to come out and, demonstrate and advocate for their rights.
Okay.
So that is one thing you have to appreciate. Secondly, we have the introduction of social media. Back in the 80s and the 90s, we did not have any social media and any TikTok. So TikTok has actually catalyzed the revolution that is happening today. So what is happening with the Gen Zs, the Generation X, the millennials, the Gen Zs should unite with purpose, because what they're calling for cuts across all cadres in societies. Whether you're old, whether you're young, you've been, this issue of the finance bill is going to affect you directly. So yes, it's time for the Gen Zs to take leadership of this country, leadership of their own issues, and we are there to back them up and to show them the direction as we move together.
All right, the clergy, Bishop Wilbert Lago, actually said that Finance Bill 2024 is a Kenyan agenda. So they will weigh in on it. I was following the space, on X over the weekend. Massive, massive reach. Millions, actually. There was the one in the morning, the one in the afternoon, still, at about 30,000 listeners. And when I got in, Nasra Nada, because I went in to listen, Nasra Nada was speaking, and you spoke about a psychological warfare. I mean, such as what was seen in the 90s. You spoke about, we need to have restraint. We, expect a pushback. These are things you were talking about. It feels, how it feels, to fight a losing battle. Before I hear from Khalif here, could you please again bring us up to speed to this psychological warfare that you were, alluding to on the X space?
Thank you so much. I think firstly, I want to give context.
Okay.
So I was speaking on the space because I was invited to shed light on Osama's particular crisis at that time, which was he was really worried about his friend. And what I was commenting on was, I know it's a hard time because it's your friend who's missing and you don't know the circumstances around his abduction. But what is critical is that you don't react, because when you see a key member of your circle missing or a friend of yours missing, you get reactive because it's natural. It's psychologically weighing down on you. So the first issue I was addressing was, yes, it's a difficult time, but you need to look at your proposed options. And the first one I proposed was call out the person that you feel is responsible, which at that time he mentioned.
Okay.
And the second was you need to engage a lawyer because the application you need to make is the habeas corpus application, produce the body, so that you have now legal recourse. And why did I mention psychological warfare? You have to remember, in the history of this country, all protests were essentially by politicians. And they were under a figure or revolved around a party. But in this instance, the first thing is it has no leader. The second, it is not by a politician. And that makes it extremely different from the MO that the government is used to. And the response they have is not going to be fit for purpose because it's not the people they're used to dealing with. So they're scrambling at dealing with a protest they've never seen in an era they've never done it before because they're dealing with people who are creative technologically in a way that they're not. And the only thing they can resort to is brute force and psychological warfare. And that, for me, is what emerged at that particular point in time as a way of pointing out that if you see these things happening, please remember to focus on the things you're, fighting for and not to engage in a way that insults them to give them ammunition. Yes.
All right. I'm going to come back to you because you're an advocate. We're talking about hashtag impeach, recall. We need to see an IEBC. You might want to talk about a leader, a political leader, someone to actually sit down if the president says he's going to engage you, Khalif. I enjoy your TikTok, by the way. But you actually went further to speak in a vernacular language. Yes. We've talked about that. Because I want to go to Sam, who is joining us in diaspora. What are you agitating for? And there was a group, I think we heard of something, they want to create a political party, then there was some Gen Zs who said that is not going to work. What is it? Are you looking at having a political party, having your own political leaders? Just quickly, as we proceed. Welcome to the show, Khalif.
Thanks a lot, and thank you for having us on board. So as it stands, this movement has no leader. We don't belong to any party. We are not funded by any politician. I hear there's a narrative they're trying to push that we are being funded by people from abroad. That is a blatant lie. And they're lying to the people of Kenya. We are fueled by our frustration with this current regime. That's the reason people are coming to the streets. We are using our own money. Small money we have, whatever I have tomorrow is what I'll use. If I'll pay for someone fair, maybe 2 or 3 people, I don't need funding from anybody to tell this government that they're messing the youths of this country. And if we don't take charge, if we don't call them out, we're not going to have a country. That is the serious bit that people don't seem to understand. So we don't have a leader. We don't need any political party. We're just telling the president that you need to get your stuff straight. You need to take charge of this country because this circle around him is killing this country every single day. So this narrative that, there's someone coming up with a party, those are just opportunists. Yes. Right. This is not a political movement. I am not a politician. If you follow my TikTok, you know that I refrain from talking about politics. But we've gotten to a point where we even have to put our businesses aside, and just become freedom fighters. Typically on weekends, I spend my weekends riding motorbikes or going for dates. Now I'm spending the weekend tweeting, free shad. It's wrong. But since the current political class has failed, we are left with no option, and we are going to take charge.
All right. Yeah. So you're saying no leaders. I want to hear from, you wanted to vie to be a leader. You had a reason. You know how the system works constitutionally. You're still a young person. Are you still at par with the fact that we don't need any sort of leadership right now, some sort of structure, organization? Because when you look through social media in certain groups, you would say that someone would argue that are the young people, are you trying to create some sort of mystery, some unpredictability that would only plunge the country into more chaos rather than give us solutions? Do you think if there was some proper structure, a dialogue would be a way to go?
Well, number one, just to reiterate the fact that, in all honesty, it's not even a tactic. This has actually just sprouted organically. If you look at African history, for example, the Arab Spring, it all began by a vendor blowing himself up, and it actually it sent a message to the masses, and the Arab countries actually ended up growing, you know. A message was sent, there was an uprising, and a message was sent to the government. But in this particular setting, number one, there is no leader. And then number two, in regard to you asking about my aspirations in the past, the reason as to why I actually vied at that young age was number one, because I felt as though there was a gap in society. It began as a simple conversation. And you could be talking with your peers and some of your mentors, and people are saying, who will you vote for to become Nairobi governor? And everyone is just like, person A, I don't think so. Person B, we don't think so. Person C, we don't think so. And you actually look at yourself and you actually feel like, in all honesty, looking at what these people are doing, I can actually do it. And one of the backing mantras was actually the simple fact that as a leader, you're allowed to be incomplete, but you're not allowed to be incompetent. The difference is when you're incomplete, if I know about, personally I'm an architect, yeah? If I know about construction and I don't know about law, I'll engage my sister Nasra, yeah? If she doesn't know about construction, she'll engage me. But if you're incompetent, you won't even know where you fall short. So it got to a point whereby we as the young people just have a conversation within ourselves. And for this particular one, it's not even about us trying to be ambiguous. It just happened. And what we're seeing, as my brother here said, it's actually just happened that way because it's not been easy for people to just be tax after tax. The first tax happens, I'm affected. Second tax happens, he's affected. Third tax happens, she's affected. By the time it's actually getting to a point whereby almost everyone is affected, there's just one loud voice, and everyone just found themselves on the streets. So I wouldn't say it's a tactic.
Okay.
It just happened. We don't know the way forward from here. But again, we don't have a leader, so I believe everything will fall in place.
You don't know the way forward, but you're talking about total shutdown tomorrow.
No, it depends. Because there's one aspect we need to agree on.
Okay.
When people went to the streets initially, it was to reject the finance bill. Initially, that was the main message. But how the political class responded has aggravated the situation.
What do you mean?
We went to protest against the finance bill.
Yes.
Because we felt that, these politicians are taking the country to the wrong direction. A very valid cause. No person was harmed, no property was damaged. We did not attack any person. But how did the police respond? They shot 2 of us. What has the intelligence, the police been doing the whole weekend? They've been abducting people. So that further aggravates the situation. So when he says that we don't know the way forward, it's because we don't know what the government will also do. We might wake up tomorrow and somebody's dead.
I want to play this video, and then I want to come to you, Nasra, and Bob on this one. You just spoke of the abductions, and we actually did a story on the same. A number of people abducted within a week. This video of Caliph speaking to President William Ruto and, of course, the government on the abductions caught my attention. Let's take a look. All right, my director tells me they're working on that clip. We will play it. We need to play it because speaking of Free Kenya movement, it's enshrined in the Constitution, Article 37. They're talking about 2 dead, of course, confirmed. We saw their parents address the press, but death was not foreseen. All right, and looking at how to move forward because different voices. He's saying this just started and it's going to go on. All they need is to be heard. There were underlying issues that have come forth, and there's need for direction. So what do you think would be the solution moving forward? Having been the chairman of Free Kenya Movement, at your age, if it's a matter of generations to come in, what do you think is the wisdom on the table?
The wisdom here is that, first and foremost, Kenyans have to appreciate that all sovereign power is vested in the people. It is non-negotiable, right? When the people give a direction and state clearly that we as a people reject this finance bill, government has to listen to the people. That is why we have processes such as the public participation processes that are there within the Constitution to be able to guide the processes of lawmaking. Now, once people have submitted their memorandas in regards to the public participation, those views are supposed to be reflected on the bill. Once the bill does not reflect the wishes of the people, then what we're saying is that the executive has actually captured Parliament.
They did away with 20 clauses, and the Gen Z insisted it's not about amending it, reject it in totality.
We're rejecting the
yes, so they don't want it amended. Yes.
Well, actually, that is the message that is rolling across the country, that we're rejecting the entire bill in its all entirety.
Okay.
Why? We had the Finance Bill 2023. We are still not yet out of the pains of the Finance Bill 2023, where they raised fuel taxes, all right? So we have a government that is raising taxes after taxes after taxes without showing accountability for this money. Where is the money going to? Which loans are these that we are paying that have never ended since we were born until today? Are we going to live in a state of perpetual slavery as Kenyans? We know that the Americans, through the IMF and the World Bank, are behind this bill. Our sovereignty is being taken away as we speak, and that's why we're saying we need to free Kenya, because Kenya is not free. We're still a slave colony of the West and other countries that are coming with their policies, to direct the fiscal policy of this country. We cannot take that, and we're not going to let the Gen Zs also be subjected to the same kind of economic hardships that we have had to go through the last 10, 20 years as a result of poor planning, corruption, all right? So if the government wants to be serious about what we are talking about, the finance bill, let them retrieve the bill and look at what we're calling austerity measures. We don't need a 4 trillion budget. To do what? What are we building with 4 trillion? Can we be shown that this money went to this project in the last 3.2 trillion budget? We're not seeing any projects going on. And yet we're being told to be taxed more and more. It is an economic injustice on the people of Kenya, and we should not let that pass. And we have a very clear direction as the Free Kenya Movement. Unlike the Gen Zs, perhaps they have not yet organized themselves. We have the advantage of having been there longer than them. So we have a very clear direction as to how the sequence of events is going to follow from tomorrow. We're in the middle of a revolution as we speak.
We're in the middle of a revolution?
We're in the middle of it.
As we speak.
Only that people have not woken up to that reality. And what we are saying is this: the government should listen to the Gen Zs and should listen to the people before things get out of hand.
Let me come back to you. Nasra.
Yes.
We're in the middle of a revolution, as is right now, according to chairman of the Free Kenya Movement. We need an IBC. I just need to understand the constitutionality of everything that's going on. Recall members of parliament who voted yes. Are we being realistic? Is it possible? Impeach? Or just go out and... What is possible?
I think I'll start by painting a picture. As Khalif rightly pointed out,
yes.
Initially, the march was about rejecting the finance bill. Now, in my opinion, the political class, which I'm one of, by the way,
yes,
has been blinded by arrogance. They're completely detached from what's going on ground, and they surround themselves with sycophants who consistently tell them that everything they do is correct. And the danger of that is that you never quite know when things have shifted. And I believe this is a huge part of the problem. And so when they see young people marching, they, with disdain, talk about privileged children, which I think even them reducing the movement to a Gen Z movement was a way of belittling the movement, because millennials are also involved.
Okay. Millennials are involved. I heard,
yes,
and I've heard, and I think they're here, Khalif, that millennials have claimed, some millennials, some Gen Z, have claimed that millennials are, were beaten to submission by past regimes and are just beginning to wake up to be part of what they started, and that millennials let them down. So it's becoming a generational conversation again. It's different from what you're saying here.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you is they have been, in this conversation.
Okay.
I think the advantage that the Gen Z have is that they are younger and perhaps less jaded than millennials are. But that's not to say millennials have not been part of this conversation. I think this is the government's tactic of saying that it's a Gen Z movement, it's young kids who don't know what they're doing, have not read this finance bill, and that's why they reduce it into people using TikTok and Ubers and eating KFC, which to me is very belittling and very disrespectful. It wasn't until recently when they were in this space, when they were schooled on different parts of the finance bill, which made me very proud, by the way. And I want to say that actually, in not having politicians, in not having a leader, that is the strongest position to be in when dealing with politicians, because that's not accepting to play by that game. That's my take. And I think it's not important right now for them to have a leader in this particular moment, because the objective was to reject the finance bill, and that is the will of the people. So the strong message here is, are you going to listen to the will of the people who've employed you, yes or no? After that, it can shift a bigger conversation, which I feel, going back to your question about the revolution, is we're at the cusp of potentially becoming a revolution if tomorrow doesn't play out in a way that is for the people. And I think I want to agree with both Yasin and Khalif in that regard, that it also depends on the government. If they use...
is now ready on social media. This is Khalif Cairo, quite agitated in this one, asking, are you afraid of us? Why the abductions? Who is doing the abductions is the question. Let's take a look.
I'm making this video addressed to the President of Kenya, William Ruto. Why is your government kidnapping people? What are you scared of? Ni nini mnaogopa? Why are you scared? Why are you kidnapping people? Why? Kenya is a democratic republic. We have a constitution. It is not a favor you're doing us. You asked for a mandate. I personally voted for you. Nilikupigia kura because you came and told us that you are saving the country. Now we are getting to a point where we simply go to the streets to demand for accountability. Now you're kidnapping people. Why are you kidnapping people? You're kidnapping doctors. Nini unatuuliza? Why are you kidnapping people? I hope you guys have seen the video. Shada na kidnapiwa kama mtu wa Al-Shabaab. Even Al-Shabaab people don't get kidnapped like this. Why are you kidnapping people? Why are you declaring war on us? What are you asking the youth of Kenya? Unatuonyesha nini? Why are you kidnapping us? Are you afraid of us? Are you afraid of us? Kenya is not owned by anybody. Kenya is not owned by William Ruto. Kenya is not owned by Farouk Kibet. Kenya is not owned by Murkomen. It is not owned by Shungwa. It is not owned by any of these people.
Khalif, once again, perhaps reiterate, abductions done, people released. Who is still abducted? Who is still missing? And why are you so convinced it's the government abducting your fellow citizens?
Because even criminals in Kenya don't have the audacity to pick people off from the streets and shove them in Prados, carrying rifles. Another young man called Fraji has been abducted today. Young men.
Today?
Yeah, today. And these are elite units within the Kenya Police, within the National Intelligence Service.
You can
substantiate that they are. Very sure. Yes, this
okay.
Because Kenya, as we know it today, there's no single way a person will come out of a car carrying rifles and come and abduct a blogger. A criminal, for what reason? Criminals in Kenya will snatch a phone, they'll hijack a car, but taking someone inside a Prado, driving them around or putting them inside a Subaru, we're not kids. It's the security services in Kenya that use Subarus. It's the security services in Kenya that use Prados with fake registrations or Proboxes with fake registrations. We are not children. We know these things. So what the government is showing us is arrogance. What the government is telling us is we are trying to intimidate you, we are trying to silence you. And that is not sitting well with us.
Nasra, I want to come to you, but Nasra, look, how do we have an objective solution or conversation here if we're having abductions, if that is what they're called? For that matter, is the government being honest, or, I don't know, is somebody else hooping into this situation and taking advantage of the moment?
No, I don't think someone's taking advantage. I think the problem is, as I said before, there was a lot of arrogance and disconnection. And at the early stages when, that discontent was starting to be expressed, they should have nipped it in the bud by asking, what is it that you want? Reject finance bill. Okay, why? Have that conversation there in a very sober perspective.
How would this conversation happen?
Public participation. And
it happened the previous week.
But
yes,
if, you're seeing that people are strongly coming out to say, reject finance bill, then you proceed to progress these conversations, and not only progress them, but ignore the will of the people. In fact, I'll tell you, some MPs were even saying that they're not elected by people. They're elected by a party, which for me was very insulting. But in going back to making this objective, yes, I think the way forward is, in my mind, very clear. There's a very slim chance for the government to redeem itself by rejecting the finance bill. If it doesn't, whatever happens, because this is organic, is going to be entirely on him. And separately, what I want to encourage the people of Kenya to do is to pursue the recall process. I think that is going to send a strong message to politicians that at the end of the day, you are accountable. You're not a leader, you're here to serve the people. And I think that's, especially the title Mheshimiwa, has been abused in this country. I'll be honest with you, because I think the most important thing is honorable comes from honor, and honor comes from service. That's where they forget. You're here to serve. You're not a master, you're a servant.
All right.
And I think that got lost in translation somewhere, and over decades, it's been growing. And I think the people of Kenya are now more aware of their rights. We have a more educated generation, we have a more exposed generation, and they're fighting back.
All right. Look at this. Demands, and I stand to be corrected, okay? Economic and financial reforms are coming in. Reject or abolish the housing levy. Is this one of the things? Remove the exclusions in the social health insurance fund. And I want us to be as realistic as possible. Drop the CAS's bill and CAS's positions. Eliminate members of parliament allowances. Mandatory jail time for corruption. You might ask yourself, if we do not have jail terms for the corrupts in this country, they're talking about mandatory jail terms. Introduce a mandatory jail term of at least 5 years for individuals convicted of looting public funds alongside the recovery of all stolen funds, all right? Redirect savings to health and education. Drop the proposals to increase the fuel levy by, is it 39%? We're looking at, drop the proposal to increase the digital business, of course, corporate tax, etc., opposing the imposition of excess duty. It goes on and on and on. And I just want to pick on the CASs and the bills and the housing levy. This appeared in 2023, Finance Bill 2023. We are on it. Some collections are being made already for those who are working. Yasin.
Well, so in all honesty, this whole issue is actually very, very simple. If we just zoom out and pinpoint what are people actually saying.
But some of the things you're asking for are not even in the current finance bill.
Yeah.
They are in entirety.
Yeah,
There's need for correction.
Yeah.
This is
so there's a whole
that is fake. Yeah. That list is fake.
Yeah. So there's a whole list.
All right. It's good that we are work because I'm yet to read the correct one.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a whole
exactly,
list.
Yes.
But
Intentional
in summary,
to know if you're at par.
Yeah. But in summary, number one, Kenya does not have a revenue problem. We have an expenditure problem. It's that simple.
At what level?
National government, county government, there is a lot of duplicity of roles. Because let me just give a simple example. 2-3 months ago, we had the Femicide March. In your constituency, your MCA will come and represent you.
Okay.
Your member of parliament will come and represent you. Your senator will come and represent you. Your governor will come and represent you. Your women rep will come and represent you, or not. Yeah? And a lot of these roles that are being duplicated, the CASs, first of all, it's even unconstitutional, with all due respect to the powers that are bestowed upon the people we elected. However, they chose not to listen to us, they chose not to listen to the courts. All the government needs to do is reduce the insatiable need to spend. There is actually no need to have the deputy president have, 800 billion. How much is it for his house? Renovation, 100 million, yeah? Just for context, yeah? Pension Towers right next to KCC. A whole tower, over 20 floors, cost 2.7 billion Kenyan shillings. The deputy president's house cost about 400 million shillings to construct. Why is it that we need 800 million to actually renovate? I can't buy this bottle of water at 50 shillings and spend 100 shillings stopping a hole that is leaking. Doesn't make absolute sense. People in Turkana are actually learning under carved bamboo structures, while we need 800 million to actually renovate the deputy president's house. With all due respect, no thank you.
Now, I intentionally read that because there's a question of misinformation. Let us be clear on that. And I read that intentionally. Because and you also, that I was asking if we are clear on this. There is a lot of misinformation, including the link that has been sent around. People saying, don't click on this link, this is fake, don't click on that. And we're still talking about a proper structure, leadership, sensitization of this group of people in order to get to a point of actually saving this country. You've said you've worked on a movement for quite some time, and you've said there's need to be more organized. How do we know? How do the other Gen Zs know? How do we know if a whole country is being misdirected by fake information? How do you even verify that what is going to the public is in line, Khalif, with what you're really pushing for? So that was very intentional, Bob. Let's speak about this fake versus real right now, if there's no proper organization on this particular platform.
I agree with you. There is a lot of people coming up at this time, and I can call them opportunistic people, who are trying to capture or to gain from this, what is happening today. I've seen some threads online of people saying collect signatures to reject the finance bill. And I can say for a fact, collecting of signatures to reject a finance bill adds up to nothing, because it will not change the process. All right? We are collecting signatures to amend the Constitution of Kenya. We have a letter from the IEBC, from Wafula Chebukati, allowing us to collect 1 million signatures from Kenyans. Yes, he's the ex, but the authority remains. Okay. All right? He doesn't seize the authority because he's an ex. Okay? So people have to vet, and I like what the Gen Zs are doing, because nowadays it's very difficult to get away with a lie. Yeah, because if you say something, the internet never forgets. People can go back and research. Even what I'm telling you today, that in 2018 we were outside Parliament. Just Google 2018. You will see whether it is true that we were on the streets. So it's very easy to verify facts from fiction. All right. And at this point of social media, it's critical for people to have that kind of intelligence to know what is fact and what is fiction. But nonetheless, it does not mean that we throw away everything. We have genuine leaders, people like the lady and gentleman on this platform. They are tried and tested. They have been seen to be advocating for the right things in society. So I think at this point, especially the young generation have to be very cautious on whom they follow, all right? But I would like to invite them all into the Free Kenya movement, all right? And let's liberate this country together.
All right, Nasra, I want to come to you because there's need for clarity. And Gen Z parents, according to the paper I'm reading, if not in totality, are backing demos, telling Kenya Kwanza to listen to the pleas. In fact, we had the midterm break come in early. And I want to bring in the voice of, Wavina Ndeto on this matter, speaking as not just a politician, but a mother. Let's listen in.
Kuna shida, and they are more than us. They are more than 75% going to 80. Why can't we just listen to them? And also killing our youth senselessly is bad. This young man, the mother is from Machakos, the father is from Gem. The boy was just running. He was shot from the back. Are you supposed to shoot somebody who is facing you or running away from you? Si hata wangepiga risasi mahali ingine ndio mtu asikufe. Please let us not joke around with these young people. Si ninamtuma si anakuaga huko, mimi niko county. Me, I'm a village girl.
Yes.
I'm telling the town boy. Kwa sababu parliament iko wapi? Iko town. Angalieni watoto wetu, na watoto wetu wawache kuwa ovyo ovyo. We carry them for 9 months and we take care of them until they get to the age that they get. Alafu somebody senseless anakuja kuwa mtoto. We are not going to allow that. And let me tell you, hapo sasa, I can tell you as a mother and a governor, hapo you're touching a raw nerve. You're touching a raw nerve. Mkianza kunini watoto wetu, sasa ndio mtafanya hata sisi kina mama tutoke na tutaongea. We will not allow it.
Nazra. Yes. Parents are in it, saying, kids, all right, careful how you tread carefully. Police, watch it. Do not hurt our children or we will join. Let us know what your thoughts are on this. And you know that the CS Interior has said, you can do this in this order. You're looking at the voting. Sometimes it goes all the way to midnight. Will Gen Zs really go back home at 6:30 p.m.? What did you tell them as an advocate? Should they legally go back home tomorrow by 6:30 p.m.?
So if I was a strategist in this organic movement tomorrow, what I would say is,
yes,
to ensure your safety, maintain the timings given by the law, which is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the physical protest. Nothing stops the digital conversation from continuing because you can still be heard past 6. So what I can tell, especially because of the statement made today, is they've already drawn hard boundaries. Don't be baited into seeming like you're going against that. So utilize your times between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and fully utilize your constitutional right. But once it's 6 p.m., please go home. Continue the conversation online. Because what I don't want is a situation where something is potentially orchestrated or provoked to give these rogue units within the police an excuse to say the youth were rowdy. We had to contain, we had to retaliate. I would repeatedly say, follow the law because the law is on your side. It is your right to protest. It is your right to express what you want. And also, remember, it is also your right to recall. I don't think people are realizing how important that right is. Senate is currently, making some amendments, which I understand should be presented within this week or next week, which should then make sure that these laws enable the public to recall. So, irrespective of how tomorrow plays out, ensure you don't forget your voice is important, but so are your recourses under the law.
On the issue of recall, because a lawyer has just spoken, I was trying to do some research on the recall process. Understandably, the parliamentarians made it very difficult for Kenyans to initiate the process.
So there's an update on that with Senate.
Okay, the amendments you are referring to?
Yes, and then separately, the High Court has removed the restrictions that would have made it difficult. Okay. So that's now why I'm saying that it's important for us to use lawyers to start now getting those signatures for the MPs. I'm saying don't have a defeatist attitude. The law is your friend. Stick for it, even as these complications arise. Because tomorrow, these are going to be people who are holding on to the last shred of their power. It's just natural that they will do everything possible. On your end, don't provoke and use the law as your friend.
Further to the recall process.
Yes, so that I can hear from Khalif.
Yeah,
yes.
We'll also initiate an extra judicial process, which is by the people. We are going to initiate boycotts across the country, targeting the specific leaders who have voted yes in this bill tomorrow.
Boycotts?
Yes.
Bring us up to speed?
Economic boycotts are the way to go.
Okay.
If you have a company selling water, we shall boycott that company. If you have a company that is selling milk and you're voting against the people, we shall boycott your products. We are going to initiate an economic boycott that is going to touch the pockets of these legislators for them to understand that their decisions are actually hurting the people, because we have to go an extra mile. this.
And lastly, just
Yes.
to interject, the social element of this. Please, Kenyans, ignore politicians. Don't give them audience. Whether it's funerals, whether it's harambes, do not let them speak and don't give them audience. Thank you.
And I want to hear from you as well, Yasin. I know we're running out of time. Right into the church. Occupy Church, you're relentless. You're going right with it. In fact, the diaspora are queuing in. Clinical officers saying, well, we're putting a hold on this strike, we're joining you. I mean, let me just hear from you. You know, so far you've heard what the advocate has said. Work within the law. You know, do not be violent. You come out as a leader they listen to. I'm sorry, you said there are no leaders, but... So you're not a leader.
I'm not the leader.
You're not the leader. So what do you think of what the, Nasra and Bob have spoken on? You know, sticking to the law, but staying brave. And are you also in the same objective of boycotting, or is that free movement agenda? Is that also something that you're doing as Gen Zs moving forward this week? I think you call it a week of, days, 7 days of...
7 days of rage.
Of rage.
Well, I can't speak about any of the actions that are going to be taken. As the Gen Zs, we will decide. And we have our Agora, which is Twitter and TikTok and Instagram.
Okay.
So tomorrow, after 1 million youths come to the street of Kenya, we will come back.
The target is 1 million youth?
The target is 1 million youth.
Okay.
Over 1 million people in the streets of Kenya. Once it's done, the Gen Zs will decide. How we've decided, because we talk, we interact through social media without any leadership, without any structures. Because you see, the reason they really want us to say this is Leader X or this is our organization is because they have mastered the art of eating organizations from within.
Correct.
Government is very good at that. So they want us to say this is the leader so that the leader can be brutalized, harassed, bought out. So we are not going to take that direction. So everybody in the Gen Z movement is a leader.
All right, a quick question. Fine, 1 million across Kenya, and we do not want to lose any other lives.
Yes.
How are you speaking among yourselves to ensure that you are, protected, taking care of your other friends? I had someone say on X, make sure you take your person, or at least make sure they got home.
Yeah.
How
so
is
number
this?
one,
Because
so number one, number one, what the first rule is, we are peaceful. And this is something that we have shown, even with the other protests. We are peaceful. No police officer has been attacked by Gen Z. No business has been looted. So we are peaceful. That is number one. Now, I've also seen other organizations like the Law Society of Kenya, which is doing a tremendous job, in sensitizing Gen Zs on how to conduct themselves. And they've done a very good flyer that just says what we should do and what we should not do. So we are going to follow, those guidelines that the Law Society of Kenya has set out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yasin, I know we're drawing quickly to the end of this. Do you think there's an end to this? Revolutions start. They go for years, sometimes for months. And, the question is, what's the end game? I know you're saying there's no proper structure, no leaders, no funding. But there is, people with disability are watching. There are pregnant teenagers, expectant pregnant teenagers. I know there is something about cancer patients, some harsh taxes that you personally, have also spoken on. But the question would still remain, are you on the streets with an objective? What if they do not reject the finance bill? What if they do not reject the finance bill? Of course, we had the comedian Omondi saying, if President William Ruto put pen to paper, this country will never be the same again. You cannot treat threats with threats, can you? Yasin? Well,
so number one, as Nasra said, we have to operate within the law, and we are not trying to cause any harm.
Okay.
We do not enjoy showing dissent or dissatisfaction towards the government, but again, any elected leader, any person holding a public office should actually be accountable to the people who they serve. Yeah. So people don't even have a problem paying taxes. People don't even have a problem with some of the things that were actually suggested in the finance bill. However, a good number of them were put there without regarding the public participation. The public participation was done, yes, correct. But the question we're asking ourselves is, was it just ticking a box? Because if it's ticking a box, everyone can tick a box. But I mean, a class 1 child can tick a box, a class 2 child can tick a box. However, it's important, it's of paramount significance to listen to the people. the government has a very, very slim chance to redeem itself. Number one, by rejecting the finance bill, because there is this fear that has been online that if the bill isn't signed by the end of 30th of June, Kenya will go into a shutdown. That doesn't happen.
What about the Treasury proposed cuts? You don't think this is enough for you to understand that some of these taxes have to pass as they are? You know the Treasury proposed that some of these things are going to get hurt, including help, where some of the youth are there as well. You think these are mere threats as well? Azimio calls them threats. Do you have the same feeling as we get to your closing remarks as well?
In all honesty, the bill might have some good elements.
Yes.
But the good elements, as we believe as of now, are just there to mask the agora or the plethora of bad elements. Right. So if it is bad, if it is majorly bad, we don't want it. If it is majorly good, because we cannot get everything good. The government cannot get all the money they want, because we can also not pay 100% of our income on taxes. However, if they can just listen to us, have a conversation, reject the finance bill, let us have a proper conversation. The next 1 month, the next 2 months, the finance bill 2023 will actually continue taking effect into the next financial year, because that won't actually have, the country would go into a shutdown. So what I would just urge my fellow citizens, number one, let's continue speaking. Number two, stick within the law. And number three, to the powers that be, right from the president to our local MCAs, what I would actually say is listen to us and let us build Kenya together. Kenya doesn't belong to anybody.
They say, justice be our shield and defender, may we dwell in unity. That's our own national anthem. Correct. I want your closing remarks real quick. Bob Njagi, Chairman, Free Kenya Movement. What would be your closing remarks, even as we, you know, the Gen Zs actually zoomed on this watch, and they gave the exact amount and what a normal Kenyan would first do to earn it and what it would help with. I mean, just close, this discussion in your own words, and then we can get the closing remarks.
I just want to say the Constitution says that we as Kenyans have a right to defend the Constitution when it is coming under threat. At this moment in time, we are focused on the finance bill, but Anki, there are more problems that we have more than the finance bill. The finance bill is just a symptom of the bigger problems that we're having in the country. For us as Free Kenya Movement, we are choosing to deal with the disease itself and not just a symptom. And that's why we said since 2018, we need to have a popular initiative, one that Kenyans can come on board and deal with the issues that are grappling with the country to resolve them. But as for tomorrow, we are calling for a nationwide shutdown of the entire country. Nothing will move, and we are not going to budge until the finance bill is rejected. If it is not rejected, then we shall give our position and direction as at that time. Thank you.
All right, Nasra, I want to get your closing remarks. I have anonymous feedback here without really saying their name. They're saying they have planned to put rogue guys to hurt them. Tell them to be on the look. This is feedback coming in. I do not plan to incite anybody, but we will look into that as well as the media. Thank you very much for sending this message. Nasra.
Firstly, to the political class, don't be arrogant. Get off your high horse. You're here to serve. Listen to Kenyans. You have a very small window to redeem yourself. And now Kenyans know they have their power, and they will ensure that you remember that the power has always been with the people. So be accountable. And secondly, if you really want to be taken seriously, remember actions speak louder than words. So recently, I think it was Okoth Obado was let off with 235 million for a 2 billion graft case. If you want Kenyans to take you seriously, put people like that away. Make them return that 2 billion, not 235 million. That's a joke. Then we can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Khalif.
Mine is to the youths of Kenya. We're actually in the middle of a very critical time in the history of our country. And what I want you guys to do is you guys need to come to the street, to the streets in your millions tomorrow. And we need to tell the government that they don't own this country. Nobody owns this country, and we need to take back this government by putting our foot down and coming against all forms of impunity and any form of social injustice. So, kesho, tupatane kwa streets.
Khalif, I want to close this, but I want to close with you. I don't know if what to call them, but, we do not want to self-fear. All we need is clarity. Yeah. What have you heard about shutting the internet? I mean, we know there's power of technology. Gen Zs or the young have been empowered by technology.
Yes.
We've vividly seen the power of technology, no lie.
Yeah.
But shutting of the internet, is this a concern you have? Is the Anonymous came out in the defense of Kenyans, if I would say that way, not Gen Zs.
Yes.
What is going on as we close?
Well, I think they're scared. The regime is simply scared because their sins are catching up with them.
So you feel convinced that there's plan to shut the internet?
If they're abducting people, shutting down the internet is nothing because they're scared. If I was scared and I was in the regime, trust me, I'd be doing the same things. Because if this regime falls, with all the looting that has been going around, of course heads are going to roll. They're not just going to sit back and let you go to the streets and cause havoc for them. These are people who are planning to stay in power for 10 years. But even the probability of them getting to 2027 is looking very dire right now. Do you think they're just going to sit back? Trust me, worse is going to come.
Thank you very much for creating time to be here. My job is just to get clarity. It looks inconclusive at this point, but we have lost 2 lives, Kenyan young lives. The police have declared their position. You are not going to be stopped to exercise your constitutional rights. Your parents have spoken. Do what you have to do, but be very responsible in it. The youth have said they are not going to be violent. The diaspora is speaking. Advocates, the LSK has weighed in on the legal, concerns. Free movement and other civil societies have equally come in. The question still remains, and the president as well spoke, so has the clergy, in saying, we will listen to you. But Nasra said, action speaks louder than words. And with freedom comes responsibility. The media is watching. Let's take a look at the front page of what you expect tomorrow on the papers. This is the Standard tomorrow. Let's take a look at that front page. Tax rebellion, Ruto's wiggle room shrinks. All right? Among other things, Iron Police over rising cases of abduction. We're looking at cargo at Naivasha, ICD drops by half. Why Kenya will have, of course, a lean team at the Olympics. But first batch of Kenyan security officers to Haiti. This is the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. Do grab a copy as we do our duty right here at the Standard Group. Thank you very much to all those who made it a success. Tomorrow is Tuesday. We follow closely. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace, and liberty. Plenty, and I mean plenty, we found within our borders. My name is Anki Dorisambat. Thank you for watching, and good night.